The man took off his shirt and slowly placed his hand on his chest. A beam of light peered from the mark. Under his pull, a gray shirt was suddenly pulled out from his body. This shirt was not an ordinary shirt, but an ancient, mysterious divine object. When wearing it, the body would become invulnerable. Weapons could not penetrate it, and fire could not burn it. Even if shot at the forehead from close range, the person wearing the shirt would not be harmed, and even the hottest fire could be held in the hand. However, not everyone could wear this shirt. Only those with the blood of the guardian of Istanbul could wear it. The young man in this video was the last guardian. His name was Hakan, an unremarkable young man. All day, he just played around and did nothing. Every day, he only dreamed of winning the lottery to change his life. But in reality, he only looked after the family antique shop with his father, until one day, a beautiful customer appeared and completely changed his life. The woman took out an album and said she wanted to buy an old shirt. The pictures and symbols on the shirt seemed very familiar to Hakan. The old man looked through the album and shook his head and said that their store did not have that item. But Hakan heard that and immediately said yes, they had one in their basement. The old man quickly denied it. The woman did not say anything more, but just left a business card and turned to leave. But Hakan refused to give up. He saw that the woman looked rich, and this could be a golden opportunity for him to change his life. So he begged to go down to the basement to check it out. His father immediately stopped him and kicked him out of the store. That night, Hakan immediately called his best friend. Hakan sneaked into the basement to steal the shirt. He contacted the woman, and after checking, she offered to buy it for a very high price. Hakan was extremely excited. Hakan didn't care about the origin of the shirt, but when they were about to finish the transaction, Hakan's father appeared and slapped Hakan, destroying his dream of getting rich. While they were arguing about the shirt, a killer suddenly appeared. The killer fired a gun at them. After a fierce gunfight, Hakan's best friend was arrested. Hakan's father was seriously injured. Hakan wanted to take his father to the emergency room, but his father wanted to go to a small clinic on Dong Street. Hakan's father said that it was the safest there. Hakan had no choice but to take his father there. When the doctor saw their condition, he quickly helped Hakan's father into the clinic. Then the doctor told Hakan to wait outside, but Hakan didn't know these people, so he kept asking where they were taking his father. Hakan completely ignored them, calling his name. The doctor's daughter really couldn't stand Hakan's nonsense. She had no choice but to lead him to the basement of the clinic. At this time, the doctor had already removed the bullet from Hakan's father's body, but due to excessive blood loss, Hakan's father couldn't bear it anymore. Hakan felt that he had been tricked by the clinic, so he hurriedly asked to call an ambulance, but the doctor refused. This made Hakan extremely angry. When Hakan was about to take action, his father, who had one last breath left, called him back. Hakan was about to ask what happened, but his father just told him to trust these people. After that, Hakan's father died on the spot. When Hakan saw this, he cried like a child. Hakan never expected that he would simply want to sell an antique and end up killing his father. After Hakan calmed down, the doctor finally told him the truth. It turned out that the person who had just passed away was not Hakan's biological father. They both belonged to an organization called the Loyalty Society, and the person they were loyal to was the current generation of descendants, Hakan. His mission was to destroy the immortals who caused disasters in the world. Hakan was extremely surprised when he heard this. He completely doubted whether these two had just been discharged from a mental hospital. The doctor didn't explain anything and immediately told Hakan to put on this ancient robe. This was an ancient, magical robe made by the most powerful magicians. Wearing it would make Hakan invulnerable. Even though the robe had recognized its owner, Hakan still didn't believe that he had to fight the immortals. When the doctor and his daughter weren't paying attention, Hakan quietly left. But when Hakan returned home, he saw a group of suspicious people gathered downstairs. Hakan didn't dare to go home directly, so he ran to the neighbor's house. Only then did Hakan realize that since he left with the magic cloak, someone had been coming to visit him every day. Hakan finally realized that he was in big trouble. He sneaked into the house and found a gun in his father's box for self-defense. At that moment, he received a text message from his best friend asking to meet in an hour. But when Hakan called back, no one answered. Hakan started to feel strange, but then he saw a dark shadow pass by the window. Hakan immediately tensed up, pulled out his gun, and looked at the door fearfully. Fortunately, the person who came was Zeynep, the doctor's daughter. Hakan breathed a sigh of relief and asked her why she came here. Zeynep told Hakan that she came to take him to a safe place. Otherwise, with his current abilities, he would definitely be crushed by the immortals. Hakan knew that he was no match for Zeynep, so he made a deal with her. Hakan said that if she helped him find his best friend, he would agree to go with her. The two followed the instructions in the message to a park. Not long after, they saw Hakan's best friend sitting on a bench. Hakan rushed over despite Zeynep's advice, but Hakan didn't expect that his best friend had already died long ago. Just when Hakan was extremely sad, he was attacked by someone with a green green magic wand. Hakan was wearing a magic robe and was protected by Zeynep. He finally escaped safely. After the consecutive shocks, Hakan couldn't hold back his grief and burst into tears. He believed that he had killed his father and his best friend. He vowed to destroy the enemy completely to comfort their souls. When the two returned to the base, the doctor also revealed information about the immortals to Hakan. It turned out that in the past 1,000 years, the immortals had caused a series of disasters around the world. They spread diseases and committed many crimes, and they hid in human form. Hakan's biological parents were also brutally murdered by the immortals. Hakan wanted to find and destroy them. He could only rely on 3 treasures: the identity-distinguishing ring, the blade of justice to destroy souls, and the inviolable magic cloak. However, these 3 sacred objects were currently being kept by different members. Only in an emergency would they use them. Following the doctor's instructions, they quickly arrived at the residence of a member of the loyal group. But strangely, this place was very shabby, and all the windows were boarded up with wooden boards. The two of them carefully entered. They quickly saw a man lying on the sofa. He claimed to be the son of the caretaker. His mother had been raped by the immortal and gone crazy 7 years ago, so he blocked all the doors. Under Zeynep's threat, the man reluctantly opened the iron door. Then he took them to see the caretaker, who was going crazy. Seeing the mentally unstable woman in the bathtub, Hakan felt a little awkward, but they didn't know that after the man left to make tea, he secretly called someone. The crazy woman looked at the tattoo on Hakan's left chest and suddenly spat out a ring from her mouth. Hakan was about to reach out to take it, but she held him back and said that person was not my son and that you guys were in danger. Only then did the two of them realize the man really came in with a gun. Fortunately, Zeynep was prepared. She restrained him from behind and immediately confiscated his weapon. She intended to force him to reveal the mastermind, but at this moment, the sound of a gun being loaded came from behind. The crazy woman opened fire without hesitation, killing the man who had tormented her for 7 years. Then she told Hakan and Zeynep to quickly escape because enemy reinforcements were coming. Fortunately, Zeynep destroyed the surveillance system in the room and took all the phones at the scene. At this time, many terrorists had already rushed in from below. In order to cover the two of them as they retreated, the woman locked the iron door. Then she gave the ring she had been keeping to the two of them. But Zeynep discovered that there was no gem on it, which meant the ring would not be able to take effect. The crazy woman told them to find a man named Sinan. The gem and the ring were kept separately by the two of them. The pursuers were approaching, so Zeynep could only use a chair to break the window panel. Then Zeynep slapped Hakan in the face. Then the two jumped out of the window. The terrorists holding guns outside also started shooting. Hakan quickly used her body to shield Zeynep. Zeynep also took the opportunity to shoot down the enemy. Then she drove a terrorist's car and fled. Halfway through, Hakan suddenly received a phone call. It turned out that the company he had interviewed for called to inform him of the job. Hakan originally intended to refuse, but Layla wanted to meet the quota, so she begged him. So he decided to go to that company to check the situation and conveniently conceal his identity. But he didn't expect that this time he had gotten an important clue. When Hakan was about to go through the paperwork to get the job, he overheard a call from the company's security team leader named Mazar. During the call, Mazar received news that the ring had been stolen. Hakan immediately became alert and wondered if Mazar was one of the immortals. In order to find out the truth, Hakan decided to sneak into the company to monitor it. Hakan successfully became a security guard under the security team leader Mazar. When Hakan returned to the base, he told everyone and declared that he would find out the truth about Mazar's identity. The opportunity would come sooner or later. The company president held a party. Hakan was assigned to ensure security for the party, but while the party was going on, a man with a knife suddenly rushed in. Fortunately, Hakan reacted in time and successfully captured the assassin. Hakan's excellent performance was also highly appreciated by his boss Faisal. Faisal immediately announced that he would promote Hakan. This would definitely help Hakan's investigation go more smoothly. At the same time, Zeynep also brought good news. She found information about the gemstone on the ring. She hoped that Hakan would go with her to retrieve the gemstone. But at that moment, the company's female administrative staff, Layla, also came over. It turned out that she was attracted by Hakan's excellent performance just now. She hoped to chat with him. Zeynep thought that Hakan would flatly refuse, but he told her to go first. Zeynep sadly returned to the clinic, but she found the clinic dark. When she felt a little strange, she saw her father's glasses lying in the hallway. At the same time, her heart was filled with an ominous premonition. She gently opened the door to the secret room, but she saw her father tied to a chair, so she quickly pulled out her gun and carefully walked forward. Suddenly, a man suddenly rushed out. The two immediately started fighting, but this person didn't know martial arts. He immediately used a stun gun to knock her unconscious. When she woke up, she found herself tied up too. The curly-haired man who broke into their house was constantly rummaging through the room. After a friendly friendly conversation, they discovered a ridiculous truth. It turned out that they were all in the same group. They were all from the loyal group. It was only because the caretaker's ring had been stolen not long ago that the curly-haired man came to them. After clearing up the misunderstanding, they began to discuss the next plan. At this time, Hakan had just returned to the base in an excited mood. When Hakan learned that Burak was born in the same place as him, he immediately said that he wanted to return to his hometown with Burak. After all, the death of his biological parents was still a mystery. He hoped that there would be some clues, so the two of them set off together. The next afternoon, they returned to the house where they were born. This place felt both strange and familiar to him. Through the stories of the neighbors, he also understood what had happened 18 years ago. It turned out that Hakan's father was the guardian god before. After he had killed the 6 immortals, he took off his magic robe because he wanted to wash away the blood on his body. But at that moment, the 7th immortal suddenly appeared. He used his claws to reach for Hakan's unarmed mother. Hearing the terrifying scream, Hakan's father was panicking and forgot to take the sword of justice. But it was too late. His wife had been murdered by the immortal. In his endless pain, he completely failed to realize that the enemy was approaching. Losing the protection of the holy relic, he was killed immediately. When the members of the loyal order arrived, they only found the cold bodies of Hakan's parents. Hakan was lucky to escape because he hid in the wardrobe. After listening to the old man next door tell him about his background, Hakan felt very sad. But at the same time, he also learned a lesson that he should never take off his magic cloak. Seeing that Hakan seemed very sad, Burak specially took him to find a place to have fun. After eating some delicious food, Hakan's mood was indeed much better. Just as the two were eating deliciously, a reporter named Yasin approached them. It turned out that Yasin had investigated and found out that the company Hakan was working for was hiding countless crimes. Especially Mazhar was a real killer. Yasin hoped that Hakan could make an internal patch for him so that the crimes of boss Faisal and Mazhar could be exposed to the light. After speaking, he also took out a USB and said that he had collected a lot of evidence. But Hakan did not agree. Hakan thought that Yasin was the captain's spy, so he kept the USB. Hakan also warned him not to interfere. When Hakan returned to the base, he put the USB on the table and told the doctor about this. Now he could be sure that Mazhar was the immortal. So Hakan wanted to take revenge as soon as possible, but the doctor said that the most urgent thing was for them to find the gem, because if they failed, they would become assassins. The two argued fiercely about this issue. Seeing the two of them leave angrily, the curly-haired man decided to do something. He secretly took the USB and went near Mazhar's house to inquire about news, but he did not expect that this move would soon expose him. He sneaked into Mazhar's room to find more evidence to prove Mazhar's identity as an immortal, but Mazhar was lying in wait, so he was caught off guard. The poor curly-haired man was mercilessly defeated. Meanwhile, Hakan was chatting with Layla at company. After their previous deep interactions, two of them had become extremely close. Even when Hakan returned to the base, he did not realize that curly-haired man had disappeared. In the end, the three of them agreed to continue searching for the remaining 2 relics. The doctor immediately revealed information about the axe of justice. It was hidden in the Ottoman Art Museum, which had many guards. Inside the museum, the girl was stealthily looking for prey. While no one was paying attention, she stole 13 phones in a row. Not long after, Zeynep suddenly discovered that she could no longer find her phone in her pocket. She immediately screamed and called for help from the nearby security guards. The tourists also naturally touched their pockets. The girl saw that the situation was not good, so she quickly ran out. Everyone chased after her. Although the girl was very agile, she was still caught by the guards. Everyone gathered to question the thief. They did not know that this was just an elaborate drama. 2 days ago, Hakan and Zeynep disguised themselves as tourists to come here to conduct a survey to carry out the plan to steal the dagger. They secretly recorded the door code and recorded the detailed location of the surveillance cameras. But stealing the dagger from such a tightly secured place was not an easy task. Therefore, according to the doctor's arrangement, Hakan and Zeynep found a helper. It was a little girl who often wandered around the nearby area. Not only was she very knowledgeable about the situation in the museum, she was also a member of the Loyal Society. Everyone had planned very carefully. The girl and Zeynep would attract the attention of the guards. Hakan took this opportunity to sneak into the gallery and use a mini bomb to break the bulletproof glass. Then he successfully got the dagger of justice. In a moment, Hakan had completed his duty as a guardian, but at that moment, the museum's alarm started to sound violently. Hakan was forced to run to the rooftop as planned, but the guard quickly chased after him and kept shooting at him. Hakan could only try his best to jump high. At the same time, Zeynep and the girl were also changing the license plate. After meeting Hakan again, the group finally escaped from here. Now, they had the dagger of justice in their hands. Next, they had to test whether Mazhar was immortal or not. But as soon as Hakan returned to the company, he saw a man hiding. Hakan immediately followed this man. But when Hakan arrived, he saw that man pointing a gun at his boss. It turned out that the man was the reporter Yasin. Because his investigation had touched the interests of the upper class, all the newspapers did not dare to publish his articles. There was no other way, so Yasin had to accuse Faisal. Yasin wanted Faisal to admit crimes that he and Mazhar had committed. Hakan immediately pulled out his gun. Both sides raised their guns and neither would give in. Seeing that Yasin was getting more and more agitated, Faisal had to ask Hakan to temporarily put down his gun. But at that moment, Layla saw the pen on the table, so she took it and stabbed Yasin hard in the back. Hakan immediately kicked Yasin and then restrained Yasin. After this incident, Hakan gained more trust from Faisal. That same night, Faisal went to see Mazhar. Faisal planned to let Hakan take over his position, but this decision made Mazhar extremely angry. Mazhar vowed to take revenge on Hakan. Not long after, Mazhar also found an opportunity. While Hakan was waiting for his girlfriend to get off work, Mazhar suddenly covered his face with a handkerchief soaked in anesthetic. At that time, Hakan still did not understand the situation. He thought that his true identity had been exposed, but then Hakan realized that Mazhar was simply jealous of him. The two of them became more and more agitated as they talked. Mazhar threatened Hakan that he would torture him to death. Then Mazhar kicked Hakan hard, causing him to fall. The glass tea table behind him was also smashed. In the critical moment, Hakan quietly picked up a piece of broken glass. While Mazhar was still angry, Hakan secretly cut the rope that bound his hands. Hakan grabbed Mazhar's hem and used a piece of glass to stab Mazhar straight in the throat. But Hakan was extremely surprised when he saw Mazhar fall. But if Mazhar was stabbed to death by the piece of glass, he would not be the seventh immortal. This also meant that Hakan was the murderer. The next morning, the police came to take Hakan in for questioning, but when Hakan turned around, he suddenly saw his girlfriend's necklace glowing blue. This was the gem on the holy ring they were looking for. Only then did Hakan realize that the immortal was actually Faisal. Seeing Hakan being taken away by the police, Faisal also revealed his true identity to Layla. It turned out that since the day Hakan started working, Faisal had suspected that Hakan was his sworn enemy. But Faisal did not act hastily, but only continuously tested Hakan with unexpected events. It was not until Mazhar's sudden death that Faisal was certain of Hakan's identity. Now it was time to end it all. Faisal needed Hakan's blood to revive his immortal comrade. Layla was completely confused when she heard this. She found all of this unbelievable. In this world, there were people who lived for 1,000 years. Seeing that she didn't believe him, Faisal pulled out a dagger and stabbed him in the neck. Faisal said Hakan intended to kill me, but he killed Mazhar instead. She finally understood that her love affair with Hakan was just part of Faisal's plan. Facing a powerful immortal, she had no ability to fight back. Not long after, Faisal went to the police station alone. After Faisal talked to the police for a while, Hakan was suddenly released immediately. The two of them went to an alley. Hakan punched Faisal repeatedly in the face, causing him to fall to the ground. After all, this guy was his sworn enemy. But what disappointed Hakan was that Faisal was completely unharmed. In this world, only the blade of justice could injure Faisal. When Hakan was tired of beating him, Faisal calmly warned Hakan that he had to bring the knife to my office within an hour, otherwise his girlfriend would be in danger. Faisal also took out the video recording the kidnapping of Layla. Hakan was extremely angry, but he had to obey. Hakan hurriedly returned to the base to get the knife of justice hidden in a secret corner. Then Hakan quickly ran to Faisal's office. At this time, Faisal was holding a gun. When Hakan entered, Faisal immediately made his request. Hakan had to take his blood and magic robe in exchange for his girlfriend's life. Hakan was a bit hesitant at first because he knew that once he took off the magic robe, he would lose all his power and could not fight Faisal. But Faisal suddenly opened fire on Layla. Seeing her bleeding non-stop, Hakan knew that this time he had really lost. Hakan took off his shirt and placed his hand on his left chest. The symbols on the shirt seemed to come to life and radiated a golden light. He tore that legendary ancient shirt off his body. Hakan then held the blade of the righteous knife and let his blood flow into the small bottle that Faisal had given him. When Faisal had the three items in his hand, he slowly backed away with his gun. Faisal had to quickly go to the cemetery to revive his immortal comrades. So Faisal signaled his henchmen to kill the two. But this gave Hakan the opportunity to counterattack in desperation. Finally, the two of them escaped successfully. Hakan returned to the base so that the doctor could treat his girlfriend. But at this time, she had lost too much blood. She used her last strength to tell Hakan that Faisal had told her last night that just one drop of immortal blood could save a human life. After saying that, she died in fear. Hakan was extremely sad. He vowed to revive his girlfriend. Even if it was just a little hope, Hakan would make Faisal pay the price. Hakan went to Zainab. The two quickly found the place where the immortal's body was kept in the church. Then they took their guns and rushed in. At this time, Faisal was preparing to revive his wife. Suddenly, a scream rang out. It turned out that Hakan Hakan had arrived in time. Hakan immediately shot and broke the Holy Grail in Faisal's hand. Fresh blood immediately flowed onto the floor. Faisal saw that his many years of planning was about to fail and became angry. Faisal fought fiercely with Hakan. Without the magic cloak to protect him, Hakan was now like an ant. He was quickly beaten to a pulp. But at this moment, Hakan suddenly burst out laughing. Faisal felt a little strange. With Zainab's help, Hakan finally gained the upper hand. But they didn't notice that the blood on the ground naturally flowed towards the immortal's coffin. The fight between the two continued. Zainab quickly picked up the knife of justice and smeared the blood on Hakan's girlfriend's mouth. While the two were still struggling, suddenly there was a noise from behind. Faisal turned his head to look. It turned out that his wife had been revived. He didn't want to fight anymore. He quickly ran to the agarwood to get his wife. But Hakan had no intention of letting Faisal go. Just as the two were about to continue the life and death battle, the great hall suddenly began to shake violently. The surrounding coffins suddenly opened one by one. At this time, the 5 immortals who had been killed by the guardian gods were all revived. Seeing this, Faisal immediately ran away with his wife. The battle between Hakan and the immortals had probably just begun. Part 1 of the movie ended here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, and see you again.